Today's topic is going to be narcissistic personality disorder. It came up because I've been asked several questions about it in the last week, and I figured, this would be a good time to address some of the things that people ask me or that they want to know. Good morning, happy Sunday, and how are y'all? It's good to see you again. My name is Tex, and this is Tex Talks. Most of the time, what I get is family members or friends or, couples. And one of them in the couple group, whatever, will say that this other person is, they think they're a narcissist. Or is it possible that my boyfriend or my wife is a narcissist? And so there's a lot of background that goes in this. And it's to me, it's a little bit more complicated than just that, because it's my feeling, and from what I've understood, that narcissism sort of in its own way runs through everybody's life. If you don't have a little bit of that self-value, it's hard for you to exist. And also how you value self, in other words, what you deem as something good in you, is very different from person to person. So we'll get into that in a minute. First, I want to go to, of course, this is what helps. You need this one, the DSM-5. If you're going to be working with, an individual that needs this diagnosis in order to, better explain what's going on. As I always said, this is a tool. This isn't the end-all, do-all. Going back to the idea that a diagnosis gives you an idea of what's going wrong or what's happening. You just have to be careful that when you give it to people, you give people their diagnosis in such a way that they understand that this isn't them in total, that you are more than just your diagnosis, and that you're more complicated than that. It's just a place to start working on things. It helps clarify what it is you need to maybe change or fix in order to acquire the life you want, to get the goals you want met. Okay. So I'm going to read straight from the book. A pervasive pattern of grandiosity in fantasy or behavior, need for admiration, a lack of empathy that begins in early adulthood. And I think it's possible, and to me, research has shown that it can be earlier than early adulthood. Present in a variety of contexts, as indicated by 5 or more of the following. Now, see, this is where we get 5. They have 9 criteria. So you're looking at 5 of these. And these 5, and this one is a little bit, to me, a little bit more vague than maybe some of the other personality disorder criteria. And I'll explain that as we go through it. Has a grandiose sense of self or self-importance. In other words, exaggerated achievements and talents, expects to be recognized as superior with commensurate achievements. Okay? Or without, commensurate achievements. In other words, they exaggerate that they are just the best at everything, that I am the best, golfer ever. I am the best basketball player ever. I gamble and I win more money than anybody. I'm the best businessman. I'm the best at whatever it is that I'm doing or you're doing or anyone else is doing. And see, this is where it gets interesting. And that was where that word without comes in, because it is possible that you may be the best salesperson in your company. You may be the best teacher where you work at. You may be the best student in this one particular class. But for individuals who have NPD, or at least have this one criteria, they will have it in everything. They're the ones that no matter what you've done, they've done it probably before you, did it better with you, and had more fun doing it. I had an individual that I worked with when I was first in the military, and this individual, he would walk up on anyone telling a story, and it could be like, yeah, this last Saturday night, I, got really lucky and found this beautiful woman who danced with me all night long at this local club, and I had such a great time. And he's immediately going to say, oh, well, that's nothing, because I was at that club, 2 weeks ago, and I had 3 women that were hanging all over me, and they were buying me drinks, and, they all gave me phone numbers, and it was just unbelievable. So no matter what you do, they've done it better. No matter what anyone else has done, they've done it better. And what's interesting is this can even go into what you think is a negative direction. Because if you're bragging about, I lost so much money gambling last week, they're going to have lost more than you. They're going to have gambled and did worse, but better at being worse than you. And I know that sounds funny, but if you think about it, if it's a competition, bad things can be a competition too. So, number 2, preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. Hopefully everybody has some preoccupation at times with being successful, being powerful. It's setting these goals and wanting to achieve or feeling that you can achieve or do these things. It's that if you notice here, it said preoccupied, and that's the key word. They're stuck on this, and it's something that's pervasive throughout their representation, throughout their thinking. It's just something they're constantly locked onto. It's not something that you sit down and you fantasize about doing one thing and then you go back to work. It's not you daydreaming for a minute about this great thing you want to be or have. No, you're preoccupied with it. So number 3, believes that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with others that are special or have high status. So here we go. If you've seen someone who treats, as you will, that they act like they're in court and they treat the peasants as beneath them and they want to associate with the royalty. But in this day and age, that could be you're in a restaurant and, it could start with just treating the staff as beneath you, but it could also go as high as when you're in a group of people and you all have, the same job and they, feel that they need to be talking to the boss or the vice president or the president or someone high up. They don't want to mingle with the commoners, if you will. And they believe that everyone should recognize them for how great they are. Okay. And the thing is this leads into the other ones because they require excessive admiration. So here's where the interesting thing is. When they're with people they feel are below them, they demand their admiration. They demand the other people look up to them. Even though when they're dealing with people that are above them, they do whatever they can to please that person, to get in their good graces, to elevate themselves so that everybody else sees them as being with this higher status person. So a lot of times in a workplace, you might see this individual, they see the boss walking down the hallway and they find a reason to go up and talk with the boss for a second. And they may compliment the boss. They may say something nice. The boss may smile. The boss may laugh. This is part of a show to make sure that everyone else sees them with the boss. That way you have the perceived notion that that person and the boss are together and up there. And again, you start thinking, oh, they have power. They're somebody, which is all part of the game that's played. So then the next one has a sense of entitlement, and this is unreasonable expectations. Notice the words unreasonable expectations of especially favorable treatment or automatic compliance with their expectations. So this is the person that goes into a restaurant and feels that they deserve to be seated immediately. They deserve the best seat in the house. And they just naturally expect people to bow and give that to them. They don't understand why people wouldn't. They are who they are. And after all, they're great. Why wouldn't you give it to them? In other words, they expect you to comply. So they may be giving the cook a hard time at a restaurant, or they may be, when they go into a shop, the shop owner or keeper, or maybe one of the staff people are not treating them the way they want, and they feel they need more of that, and they demand it. Okay. So let's go on to number 6, is interpersonally exploitative, i.e. takes advantage of others to achieve his or her own ends. In other words, using people to get what they want, exploiting people. This is friends, family, their own children. There is no limit to what they will use to get what they want. Because when you go down to the next one, which is lacks empathy, you'll understand. Because a lot of times you go, well, why would they do that to their own family? Because their own family are tools to get what they want. Everything and everybody is a tool to get what they want. So they're climbing this ladder. Okay. So number 7 is lacks empathy, unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. So this is this idea that taking what they want, even if it means the other person suffers, that's the other person's problem, not theirs. Okay. So with that in mind, they have no problem using you to get what they want. And after all, if you go back to the other criteria, they feel that this is only natural. After all, they feel they deserve it. Is often envious of others and believes that others are envious of them. So here we go again. This is the mindset where they think, whether or not it's true, that everybody else wishes they were them, is envious of them. And at the same time, if they see anything else that someone else has, they covet it. They want it. They're envious. I should have that. If you could work hard all day long to get a promotion, and that person who's the narcissist, who does none of the work but yet feels they are great, doesn't understand why you got that promotion. They're envious of your promotion. They will go about trying to find a way to get you pulled down so that they can get that. They see the world as dog eat dog. There's a lack of things out there and they have to get theirs. Instead of abundance, they come from lack and they want to make sure they get theirs first. And they don't care if anybody else gets theirs at all. It's just a rule. Shows arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes. Now, the thing is if you go into it, there's different ways this can present. Because when you mix the other characteristics that people have, the average idea of what we think is a narcissist is we see that person being loud and rowdy and in the party and demanding attention and being haughty and just expecting everyone to fawn at them. And this is not always the case because there's other characteristics that go into making a person. So if you're introverted, these characteristics will show in different ways. They may brood silently and plot in quiet to get what they want. They may demand things. They may even come from an attitude of, I deserve things. And this is where that deserving really comes in. They feel they deserve things without having to do any of the work. So they feel that, I deserve, money, a job, things like that without having to work for any of it. And instead of being the loud, rowdy person at the party, they're quietly going about trying to get what they want by subterfuge. They may be using these underhanded or passive aggressive moves to get what they want, to maneuver things within so that they get the things they want out of life because they feel they deserve them. Okay. So with those 9, it says 5, and this is where it gets a little confusing because if you have a little of each of these, I don't believe that still makes you a narcissist. Someone recently came to me and says, hey, my wife says that I'm a narcissist, which to me, I was like, interesting. What do you think? Well, I may be one. That was unusual. And because most of the time, people that tend to be narcissists, if you truly are a narcissist, you see what you do as right. See, here's where the personality disorder part of things comes in. If it's part of your personality, then it just seems natural. Someone else may be able to look at you and say, gee, you're acting this way. But in your mind, the way you act is justified, reasonable. It's the way it's supposed to be. Therein lies the problem. There's no discomfort for you that you can see being narcissistic. You may be upset when you don't get what you want. You may be upset when people don't do what you feel they should do for you. It doesn't change the fact, though, that you still feel they should do for you. The lack of empathy is there in that there's no remorse for what you've done. You may know that you're losing something. In other words, you may lose a husband or a wife. The question is will you see that for what it is and go, my behaviors caused that? Or will you look at it the other way around and say, well, they just couldn't handle how great I was. They couldn't handle the competition of all of the men or women that were trying to get with me, and their jealousy was the problem, not mine. So it's very unusual that I have someone come to me and say, oh, yes, I know I'm a narcissist and I want to treat that. I do have people say somebody sent me, or I have someone, come in as a part of a family, and then in that meeting identify the other person saying that. That doesn't necessarily mean they're a narcissist. You can be very selfish and self-centered and arrogant and haughty and all these things and still not have the diagnosis. That don't mean that you don't have some narcissistic qualities or traits. But like all the personality disorders, you don't have the personality disorders unless you meet the criteria. And also remember that this is a pervasive pattern. This isn't something recent. In other words, most people are not okie dokie, and then one day they get promoted, they get, ahead in life, they start making a lot of money, or they start getting popular, and then they suddenly become narcissistic personality disorder. They may become more narcissistic. They may start to show these things that are traits in here. But remember, this has to start and be part of your personality, and it goes back in time, and it has to be a pervasive pattern. Not sometimes you're this way and sometimes you're not. No, most of the time you're this way. So you see where they're starting to get that delineation, that change. It's with a lot of the personality disorders, you can have a lot of the criteria, but not enough to actually get the diagnosis. In fact, this is quite common. Sometimes people will be diagnosed with a cluster B personality disorder, or what will more often happen is you can see there is more than one personality disorder in this person, and they meet criteria for more than one. You're just trying to figure out which is the one that's causing the most problem, and how can you go about working on that in order to help the person get what they want. And maybe some of the other will disappear. Sometimes, you kill two stones with one bird. Yeah, I don't want to kill the bird. I like the bird today. So what you're doing is when you eliminate this part of you through hard work, where you are, not so grandiose, that may also affect you in other areas where then you don't feel the need to prove yourself. And then maybe you have less of one of the other characteristics or criteria of another one. Or the same way, if you develop a measure of empathy, you may not be able to be fully empathetic all the time with people, but you develop enough of an understanding so that you can feel. You've repaired that part of you that's shutting off your ability to have empathy for others, and you've started to get a little empathy. That may help you in other areas. Okay. So with that in mind, like I said, you can go into the DSM, you can go online and look up, DSM-5 criteria. The thing is I always warn everybody, be careful with this, because self-diagnosing it's not effective. And it can actually, get you in this situation where you're ignoring some of the other problems that need to be worked on. And if you're trying to diagnose your friends with it, be careful. Because I always tell people, if you're hanging out with a narcissist, what does that say about what's going on with you? Why are you attracted to a narcissist? Now, hold on. I know a lot of y'all will go, I didn't know, this person came in and they exploited me, because there's a whole lot that goes with this. There's gaslighting. There's a lot of things that the hardcore narcissist can do to really cause chaos in your life, to take advantage of other people. Because if you think about it, someone who's truly narcissistic and has no empathy and has no problem exploiting you, they can really hurt the people around them. The thing is, though, is you have to back up and go, how do I make myself stronger, have stronger self-esteem, and defend myself in the general public from people who are going to do this to me, or people who are attracted to me because of that, which gets into a whole nother topic and a discussion for another time. The thing is, though, is when you're in these couples, these dyads that would come into my office, and one person's being told they're a narcissist, I immediately look to the other person and go, okay, if they're the lock and you're the key, let's identify who's what, where, and how. How are both sides contributing to this? Now, again, this is separating the idea of any abusive behavior to other people. That's a whole different category. Right now, we're just talking about the average person on the street who's selfish, wants what they want. Maybe they're unfaithful, maybe they're greedy. That's a whole different thing than being Narcissistic Personality Disorder. So I want to clear that up today because a lot of people in the last week have came to talk about that. And maybe it has something to do with that big old full moon up there today. Don't know. But if it does, hey, so y'all have a good day. Hope everything goes all right with you. If you have any questions, be sure to send them in to me. I'm glad to, talk to you, make a video to help explain things, go into more detail on things that you're interested in. All right. Namaste.